Well, good day and welcome to you. It is August the 20th, 2021, and I hope wherever you happen to be, you're having a great day. Now, if you're new to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing, and here on this channel, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We take a deeper look at why the Masters and the teacher are coming back now. Why is it important that they do so at this particular time? And of course, what does it mean for you and everyone else that they're doing this? Now, I have about 350 to 400 videos where we take a deeper look at Maitreya and his emergence and talk about his priorities, of course, look at the miracles that are going on, talk about some of the current events and how this information fits into there. But this information on this channel is not the end-all and be-all of this. There's actually a lot of websites that you can go to and you can find even more information about it. So if you look at the description portion of this video, okay, I've included links that you can go to and you can find out more information about this information if you just take the time to look at some of these links. Like go to the Share International website, for instance. I do think that that particular website, in and of itself, you can get more background information about this than any other website that I provided because it talks about the miracles that are going on. You can see images of these miracles. You can see that they're happening to different types of people all around the world, different groups, different religious groups, and people of no particular religious faith. You can actually read some of the published articles about these miracles that have, appeared in major news media and so forth. You can see images of this, some of them even videos of some of these miracles. You can see videos of lectures that Benjamin Creme did when he was alive. You can listen to radio interviews he did when he was alive. And he is really the source of this information. You can't really, even though he's passed away, he says it even now from the grave better than anybody else could. And you can hear more about this information from him, in that way. You can even get a lot of background information about Maitreya and the emergence of Maitreya and these masters. I read articles that were published in Share International that were written by one of these masters. You can actually see and read some of these articles yourself. It's a lot better to do it than to hear it from me. So there's a lot of different things in that website that I think, if you're interested in knowing more, even if you're interested in seeing if it was true for yourself, it would be a great start for you. And then I've listed other links that you can kind of get some more information about what we talk about. Anything from the Marshall Plan to the things about the environment to even going to the George Adamski website and looking at information about UFO activity and how it pertains to today and are they here in a beneficial way or not. And you maybe get a different perspective on UFO activity than you might be used to reading about or seeing about or talking about with other people. So hopefully that will help. And if after that you have a question you'd like to ask about this and you want me to try to answer it, post your question in the comment section. You can always comment. People know they do that too. They can do that too. So it's like when you comment, if it pertains to this information enough and I think adds to the discussion, well, shoot, we'll talk about it in the next video. And I love talking about reading comments and talking about it and learning more about it that way, and of course the questions and so forth. And you can always email me at searchforsigns@mail.com if you want to get a hold of me that way. All right, so that out of the way, I do have a question to cover, and I want to read it out, and then I'm going to try to answer it in a couple different ways, because I do think that within this one question we can talk about this information and learn more about it, but I do need to kind of break it up. So this question comes from James Wambidi. And James, thank you for the question. I think it's a wonderful question. And after I'm done trying to give my take on it, I want to read an article written by Benjamin Creme's master that if you listen to it all the way through, hopefully you'll see why I'm reading it in reference to your question. So I do think it answers it in some way. How should we convince the majority that the Christ who is preparing to come is different from the one written about in the New Testament Gospels? That's the question. So I want to break it up, James, and I think by doing that, we can learn more about this information that way. If that's okay with you, and like I said, then I'll read Benjamin Creme's master's article and try to top it off with that. All right, so the first thing I want to point out, preparing to come. Maitreya is actually already on TV. He's not preparing to come. Now, he might be in the very beginning stages of his mission, but because his mission's going to last for the next 2,500 years. He's not going anywhere. He'll be one of the central figures in all our lives over this coming time and so forth. World leaders will look to him for his advice and so forth. But we're just in the preliminary stages of it, but he is already on TV. Now, it does beg the, not the question, but it does, I think, answer your question a little bit based on how he's been acting on TV, because he's not coming out and saying he is the Christ, or he is the Imam Mahdi, or he is anything but just an ordinary person who's concerned about the problems of the world. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why I don't think it's important to really have people believe or see he's the Christ the way that you and I might see him to be. Does that make sense? So it's about what we need to do as a humanity right now, which Maitreya would say the first thing we need to do, the most crucial thing we need to do, because it sets everything else up for success, is institute the principle of sharing. Hands down. That's the first thing we can do. We really can't do anything, even saving the planet with our, in terms of the environment, without instituting the principle of sharing first. But is it important for people to see him as the Christ? Well, obviously it's not. He's not declaring himself as the Christ. Now, is he different than what it said in the Bible? Or, how it was written in the New Testament Gospels, as you put it. Is he different than that? I don't think so. Now, I know my Christian brethren would beg to differ on that for sure, because they've let me know over the years how much they do not agree with that statement. But if you look at the teachings, at the heart of what Jesus talked about, there is no difference between what he was teaching and what Maitreya is teaching today. It's just Maitreya speaking to a whole different humanity than Jesus was. Jesus was speaking to an humanity that did not know nearly as much as we know today. Even the least educated members of our humanity at this point know way more than the most educated people knew at the time of Jesus. But the teaching itself is really the same, because it's coming from the same source. Now, who and what Jesus was, and Maitreya's role 2,000 years ago working through Jesus telepathically, I don't personally see that as an affront to my early Christian beliefs, because I've read it, I've studied it, I've seen that there's truth to it and so forth like that. But for a lot of Christians, of course, they would disagree with that, right? They would even say it's a blasphemy to think or to even speak about another being working through their only true Son of God, Jesus. It was God that worked through him. He's God himself, I don't agree with that belief in who and what Jesus was, But the teachings themselves are one and the same, if you really look at it. So it really doesn't matter what you believe or whatever. So once people see that the teachings of Maitreya are very similar to, or almost the same, or really are the same as Jesus, then those Christians who perhaps aren't as attached to their own beliefs will start to believe more and more about it. But up until that point, it's, kind of where we're at. Now, in terms of the convincing, okay, whether you're trying to convince the majority of the people on this planet or just one person, I would say it's best not to try to convince anybody of anything. Just speak the truth as you see it, and if they believe it, they believe it, and if they don't, they don't. Right? That should be the way that we should be doing this, right? Now, in terms of the whole world, right? Well, perhaps Maitreya could say it the best, right? Because, for one thing, he isn't even fond of being called the Christ, because he knows it causes confusion within the minds of Christians even. But he's even said, well, if I'm the Christ for the Christians, then what about the Messiah for the Jews? If I'm the Messiah for the Jews, what about the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims? He only prefers to be known as the teacher, because that's how he truly sees himself, as a teacher, as a friend, as a brother, perhaps someone who's gone farther along the path than you and I have and is willing to teach us the way forward, perhaps, if you want to look at it like that, but nothing more. He sees this, as divine as he is. That's why when people always assume that because they think he's the Antichrist, he's going to exalt himself above God. I've always used this as a way of addressing that concern is Maitreya is not going to assert himself above God, above Jesus, above any one of us. It doesn't matter how uneducated and poor we are. He won't even assert himself above them. He will see them as equal to him, you see? But when I talk about him as the Christ, when Benjamin Creme referred to him as a Christ, is not as a religious figure that the Christians are seeing their one and truly Son of God. So I'm not saying that Maitreya is the only true Son of God and Jesus isn't. I'm not. I'm looking at him as from the esoteric standpoint of who and what the Christ really is. So to kind of give a background for those of us coming to this information, the masters would say that humanity is divine. Each and every one of us are divine, without exception. Within the hearts of all of us is divinity itself. The same divinity that created all of cosmos is within the hearts of all of us. Now, we don't manifest it perfectly. There are times when we're still responding to our animal instincts of our physical body, or being caught up in our own ideologies and our own emotions and forget all about divinity. That's why Maitreya says isms are like drugs, because it gets you to forget who you really are, right? But that divinity is, even then, is still within the hearts of every single man, woman, and child on this planet, without exception. Now, where this fits into this is we are starting to manifest it more and more. But it's a long and very, very slow process for it to do this. It will speed up quite a bit once we see these masters. And that article that I'm about to read talks about that very point. But it's, without exception, we will get it. You know, these masters say they are the guarantee that we will be as they are, as divine. Now, these masters are divine. They just as we're divine, but they manifest it perfectly, moment to moment, without exception. They could be sitting in a chair and to our eyes appear to be doing absolutely nothing but sitting still in a chair, but yet they are living moment to moment, without exception, as divine, as divinity itself. They might be appearing to do nothing, but yet they're doing a lot. You know what I'm saying? They're affecting the environment in a way that only the true divinity can, but they manifest it perfectly. Where we just manifest it here or there, every once in a while, every second here or there, a couple minutes here, maybe an hour if we're lucky, here or there. But for the most part, we're still grappling with what that means to even be divine. Most of us don't even believe that we're divine, let alone even try to manifest it and work toward it, right? Now, where the Christ fits into this, and this is important to understand, is the esoteric view of who and what a Christ is a master who has taken it a step further and has taken this very rare but yet arduous path to not only manifest divinity, but embody divinity itself, the love nature of God itself. So the cells of Maitreya are love itself. And not all masters do this. And so it's extremely rare all throughout cosmos. It happens, but it's extremely rare for a master to choose to do this path. But it happens. And it is unheard of to have a Christ on our planet at the level of the planet itself right now, which is a pretty relatively low vibrational planet relative to even the planets of our solar system. It's almost unheard of. But yet we actually have had two Christs that this planet has produced. Maitreya is one, and the Buddha was actually the first. Maitreya is the second. So the Buddha is the master or the Christ that worked through Gautama Buddha, and Maitreya worked through Jesus in the same way. But that esoteric view of who and what Maitreya is really not that important to convince somebody to believe in it. Now, here's where I want to talk about in terms of what is important, okay? It's about wanting for the world what Maitreya is advocating for the world, which is we have to create sharing first to bring about justice, to bring about peace. That is the most important thing that we could do first, hands down. If not, then the environment's going to go bye-bye. We could, if we don't make it that far, if we make it that far, I guess, but yet it's so politically unstable. There's so much violence in the world. There's so much bloodshed and war and we have the capabilities of destroying ourselves that if we go on much longer, it might get so tense that one nation somewhere uses a nuclear weapon against another. You see what I'm saying? It's always a possibility of that going on. So that's why it's so important to put war behind us forever. But the only way to do that is to institute the principle of sharing. Now, Maitreya said through Helena Roach, who wrote the Agni Yoga series, if you're familiar with that. And he said, a long time ago, that there was a time early on in human history where one true man could save the world. And then it came a time where 10,000 weren't even enough. And what he said, in the coming time, which he's talking about now, he will call on 1 billion people. Now, the one thing I love about Benjamin Creme was not only his direct relationship with his master where he could ask him these questions, but also his curiosity to ask these questions. So he asked his master one time, he goes, does Maitreya have his 1 billion? And people that he said that he would call on who wants the changes in the world that he's advocating and so forth. And his master said he has 1.5 billion people. So he has more than enough people to make the changes. So it doesn't have to be the majority. In fact, actually, that 1.5 billion people who want what he's advocating don't even know that they're even part of Maitreya's group that are going to be doing the changes. Right now, they just kind of want the changes. They want to see peace. They want to see stability. They want to see maybe the end of hunger or the saving of our environment. But other than that, they don't know much more than that. And then you have the vast majority of the people who won't be doing much of anything. They'll just be kind of sitting neutral in the middle. And then you have those people who are very much against what Maitreya is advocating. They want exactly the way it is right now because that's what suits them. So that's kind of what it will more look like, But even then, you and I can't convince these people. You know what I'm saying? That's where Maitreya comes in. That's the Lord of Love himself that will galvanize that 1.5 billion people to action, where no government without exception will be able to withstand the power of that people. It will be the force for good that we've never seen before, galvanized into action, synthesized into one razor-sharp point that will focus on what it needs to happen. But it's going to take somebody like Maitreya to be that voice for the people to bring it together. That's why he's already speaking on TV, trying to do those kind of things. But that's more important than even believing he is the Christ. There will be people in that group that won't even see him as the Christ or anything. They would just be happy to hear somebody saying what he's saying. You see what I'm saying? Others will see him as the Christ. And Benjamin Creme's master even said now, with him on TV, there are people who are starting to see him as something other than just an ordinary person. There are other people who are starting to already pray to him. And then there are other people who are against him and other people who are kind of unsure. So it's a mixed bag, right? But Maitreya is not trying to convince anybody of anything. He's only speaking heart to heart to us, and he will only do that. But his heart is pure. The love of God flowing through him will flow to the hearts of all of humanity. And that divinity which is within the hearts of all of us will start to wake up. I know it's hard to believe. I know we probably can't even see it or even believe it at this moment in time, but that's what is in store for humanity. So hopefully that helps. Now, I'm going to read this article, Men Will Answer the Call. And of course, this article was published in Share International, and it was published in Share International in December of 2009. Now, in the beginning, he talks about something different, but if you listen to it all the way through, you'll see why I picked this one out to address the question. So hopefully this helps. Since the dawn of time, man has asked himself the question, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Despite the teachings of the various religions and those of holy men of the past, most people are baffled and unsure whether there is indeed any purpose or meaning in what we call life, and wonder likewise what experience, if any, awaits us after death. In this coming time, the answer to these long-held worries and fears will become the common knowledge of all. This will in large measure be the result of the open presence of Maitreya and his group of masters. Your elder brothers will so stimulate the consciousness of men and so exemplify the teaching they give that in a relatively short period an enormous awakening will take place. Gone for millions will be the doubt and fear of the past. Men will know for sure that they are, each one, engaged in a great adventure of discovery, which will take them in due course to a perfection hitherto undreamed of. Such sense of meaning and purpose will replace the present arid and fearful doubt that an era of untold creativity and change will blossom and flourish. Thus will it be, and thus will men awaken to their destiny as exemplars of the divine. All men are divine, but not all know this to be true. More and more men will realize this truth and so change the world around them. The masters are readying themselves for open recognition and work. Their presence will provide the confidence that the needed changes in our social life will be for the better and have long been necessary. The aim is that the masters and men should work together in every field of endeavor and thus expedite the changes required. The first priority is that war must be abandoned forever, utterly, totally. This requires a degree of trust as yet known in the world. Sharing alone, it will be found, will manifest the needed trust and so create justice worldwide. Until justice reigns, there will never be true peace. Step by step, men will come to see this logic. They will come to understand that there is no alternative. If men would live and prosper, they must abandon injustice and war. Can men meet the challenge? Men have faced and overcome many vicissitudes in their long sojourn on earth. Today, led by Maitreya and his group, they will be inspired to act for their own best interest and to answer the call for justice and sharing. Many are the voices of the past which will call for caution and delay. But when men hear Maitreya's voice sound within their hearts, they will be kindled by a fiery longing for justice and peace, for sharing and right relationship, for brotherhood and love. Thus will it be. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.